My dad's landlord. Around 40 years ago, when my dad was still in college, he moved pretty far away from Vietnam to New Haven, Connecticut for college. He wanted to be as close to his college as possible, but also wanted to overlook the city's skyline. He had already received the Form I-20 and went to the consular at the US Embassy to try to get an M-student visa. He was a first-generation immigrant, and though he had taken a fair amount of English classes in Vietnam, he wasn't fluent and knew nothing about housing in America. Thus, he went the cheap route and rented out a small, shady-looking apartment somewhere in West Haven. His landlord gave off some serious red flags that he had sort of brushed off because the apartment was only $250 a month. Firstly, the landlord's abode was directly next door to that of my dad's, and during his first night there, while he was getting unpacked, he heard high-pitched screeching and loud opera music. The next morning when he awoke, he noticed a chair by his bed that wasn't there before, and when he went to the bathroom, his toilet seat was up, even though he always puts it down. Not only that, but his door was unlocked. He again brushed it off because he didn't want to stir up anything with his landlord by asking if he had come into his room, or by asking if it had been broken into, meaning the apartment was insecure. He also wanted to explore West Haven, as he had a few free weeks until the semester started. As he left, he made sure to lock the door behind him, but when he returned after a few hours out, he noticed that not only had the door been unlocked, but it was slightly ajar. This went on for weeks until the semester began. Things slightly moved from where he had left them, articles of food missing from his fridge, and other weird happenings. Finally, my dad had enough. One night, he decided to stay awake until very late and try to catch whoever was doing this red-handed. That night, he finished his coursework, got into bed, and stayed up. And sure enough, at around 2 a.m, he sees his door handle turning and a hand sliding through. My dad froze and got chills. He then saw the landlord creep in and take some eggs from the fridge. Not only that, but the landlord then went to the bathroom, coming out a couple of minutes afterward. He then slipped out, once again, leaving the door unlocked. This creeped my dad out like hell, but for some stupid reason, he still decided to stay at the apartment for a few more nights before he finally confronted the landlord. This was before mobile phones were super common, and even decent cameras that didn't cost over $100. So my dad literally had to go out of his way to get evidence to show the cops besides just mere accusations. He decided to take matters into his own hands. That weekend, when his landlord went out shopping, he broke into his landlord's room, and what he found there was seriously fucking disturbing. First, he found some intimate doll, which isn't bad itself, but when he investigated further, he found an old black Kodak camera. Under this was some extremely low-quality pictures of my dad in bed sleeping. He noped the fuck out of there, taking the pictures with him, and went to the police station. He moved out there shortly, and he later heard that this same landlord had scared other residents of the apartment off after hearing the odd screeching, opera music, and after seeing all of their things moved around. We don't know much concerning his whereabouts now, but fortunately, the landlord ended up facing some prison time. The time I got locked in a room with a stranger. When I was 18, I worked in my college's residence building at the front desk, and I think I almost got assaulted or murdered. You be the judge. During the summer, the building operated as a hotel, so 2.5 floors were hotel rooms, and half of the 3rd floor consisted of student rooms. The whole building operated with a hotel swipe key system that was pretty outdated, and all the doors were powered by 4 AA batteries. If the batteries died, there was a decently lengthy process to replace them and reprogram the door. A dark-haired guy came to the front desk from inside the building while I was working an overnight shift at around 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. He said he left his key card in his room. I made him a new one and also made my first error of the night. Hotel guests could have as many room keys remade as they wanted. Students, however, were supposed to be charged $2 and given a temporary key card to be returned when theirs is located. I gave him a new key for his room and asked if he was a student or a hotel guest, to which he replied, student. I know I should have checked our system to charge his account, but I was caught up doing administrative duties and forgot. I used to trust people way too easily at this job, but quickly learned not to. Later on in the night, maybe at around 3 or 4 a.m., he came to the desk again and said he couldn't get into his room. I asked if he just forgot his key again, and he said no, the door wasn't working. I asked if the light was coming on when he swiped his card, and he said no, so I figured the batteries were just dead. I told him I'd have to change the batteries and went up to his room with him. He asked for my name, and I told him, but he didn't tell me his. I opened the room door manually with the master key and told him I'd have to prop it open while I worked on the back panel to replace the batteries. He said, no, it's okay, I'll close it, and proceeded to close and deadbolt the door. Really fucking weird, but I tried not to think about it. I had changed the batteries on plenty of other doors by this point, and some students were iffy about having their doors propped open for the room to be on display for anyone walking by. He also had a different accent from around here, and I thought he might be an international student. We had a lot of students from other countries where English wasn't their first language. I gave him the benefit of the doubt and thought maybe it was just a language barrier issue. Regardless, I really felt like something was wrong, but I tried to ignore it so I didn't freak him out. While I was trying to focus on fixing the door as quickly as possible, he kept trying to entice me to go further into the room, saying his bed was broken and he needed me to take a look at it. He held out a little house key and said, I have a key, go get it, and threw it under the bed. He also said there was a leak under the fridge. He just kept trying to get me down on the ground, throwing random problems at me. Obviously, I told him no. I'd send maintenance up in the morning to take a look at it if anything was broken. I had my back to him, and he asked me if I would take off my glasses. I said no, I need them to see. His tone of voice changed, and in the most steady, chilling manner, he said, Ella, it's okay. You can take them off. And from behind me, he reached around and tried to take off my glasses. I swatted his hand away and, trying to stay composed, said, no thanks, I need to keep them on. Even though he was creeping me the fuck out, I didn't want to be rude to him. I didn't want to get in trouble if he complained about me or risk upsetting him and having him yell at me. I got up to grab something from the door repair kit, unlocked the deadbolt, and opened the door in the process. He jumped toward the door to close it again and told me to keep it closed. I told him no, I had to open it to start reprogramming it from the front. While I held the door open with my foot and grabbed something from my door repair kit, he started playing with the little wispy hairs at the top of my forehead and trying to touch my shoulder. I swatted him away again and asked him not to touch me and focused on getting the hell out of there. He once again tried getting me to follow him into the bedroom, saying the bed was broken, and I went as far as the doorframe to see if I could spot any actual problems with his bed. But this is when I realized that he had nothing in his room. No dishes in the kitchen, no shower curtains in the bathroom, no sheets on the bed. Nothing. This wasn't his room. My brain once again went back to the international student theory, thinking maybe he had just arrived today and hadn't gotten a chance to buy anything yet. But in the pit of my stomach, I knew something was wrong. I fiddled around with the door for a few more seconds before announcing that it was fixed and quickly gathered the door kit and left. Before I reached the elevator, he came without his shoes on to follow me. He tried to get back in the room to get his shoes and called out, Ella, the door isn't fixed. You need to come back. I went back and opened the door manually and told him if the door was broken, I'd have to send up maintenance to fix it in the morning. I knew he was going to follow me to the elevator again, so I closed the room door behind me once he went inside and ran down the stairwell as fast as I could. When I made it to the front desk, I checked the computer and saw that the room he was in was supposed to be empty. It wasn't a student room or a hotel room. I locked myself in our back office and called campus security. He made it down to the lobby a few minutes later and came behind the desk. I yelled at him to get on the other side and wait now that I knew he wasn't a resident. He tore the corner off of a piece of paper I had sitting on the desk and drew a flower on it. When security arrived, he ran back up to the empty room and tried convincing them that he lived there so he wouldn't have to leave. He kept showing them his key, which had decided to work on the door again somehow. They escorted him back downstairs and came to ask me if he really did live there. Obviously he didn't, that's why I called you guys. He kept interjecting to argue that he did live there, but couldn't even recall any verification or identification that he lived there. He even said, before giving his name, as if he were trying to think of one. And when they asked him for his address, he just said across the street. One security guard asked if he lived in the apartments across the street, and he said yes, but couldn't tell them what the building number was. He couldn't even give an explanation as to why he was here. At one point, he tried to tell them he was my friend. He left. We didn't call the police because he didn't actually do anything, but it was still unsettling. Later on, it dawned on me how he figured out that the room was vacant. One of the housekeepers had been using it as their personal break room. A few days later, another housekeeper came up to the desk and told me that they found the door deadbolted open, the TV on, and the housekeeper inside watching TV. She must have forgotten to close the door when she left for the night, and when the creep let himself into the building, he found it. But why would he go in if the door was cracked, with the TV on?